Picture this. A man, 52 years old, finishes a 5-mile run on a Tuesday morning. Heart rate recovery is excellent. Blood pressure at his last physical, normal. No chest pain, no shortness of breath, no dizziness. He showers, drinks his coffee, and by 9 he's at his desk. By 10:15, he's dead. And the autopsy will show that the artery responsible for his death was already 65% blocked the morning he laced up his shoes. His body had been quietly compensating for years. He felt nothing, because that's exactly what his biology intended. This isn't a story about bad luck, it's a story about a mechanism so sophisticated, so elegantly deceptive, that it has killed more people than every war in human history combined. Coronary artery disease is the leading cause of death on Earth, not because we lack the tools to find it, but because we've been taught to wait for symptoms that biology has specifically evolved to suppress. And understanding that suppression, really understanding it, might be the single most important thing you ever do. Here's where it starts. Your coronary arteries are roughly the diameter of a drinking straw, and they wrap around the outside of your heart, delivering the oxygenated blood it needs to keep beating. From birth, those arteries are under constant pressure, mechanical stress from every heartbeat, chemical stress from diet and inflammation, and the simple act of living. And over decades, the inner lining of those arteries, a single-cell thick membrane called the endothelium, takes damage. Tiny injuries, almost invisible. But when LDL cholesterol, particularly the small, dense, oxidized kind, finds one of those injuries, it slips beneath the endothelium and gets trapped there. The immune system notices, sends macrophages to clean it up. And the macrophages, overwhelmed by oxidized fat, swell into foam cells and die in place. That accumulation of lipid-laden debris, dead immune cells, and inflammatory proteins is the beginning of a plaque. It's less like a pipe clogging and more like a blister forming inside your artery wall. Now here's where the body does something breathtaking and catastrophic. As that plaque grows, the artery doesn't just narrow, it expands outward. The wall remodels itself, growing wider to accommodate the obstruction and preserve the inner channel. This is called positive remodeling, and it is the reason that a 40% blocked artery can look completely normal on a standard stress test. The lumen, the open passage the blood flows through, stays nearly intact. Flow is maintained. Symptoms? Zero. Your cardiologist might tell you everything looks fine, and from the outside it does. The artery has been quietly restructuring itself around a growing danger, and from the blood's perspective, the road is still wide open. This is the 70% threshold, and it's one of the most dangerous numbers in cardiology. Most people don't feel coronary artery disease, don't feel chest pain or pressure or shortness of breath, until a blockage has narrowed the artery by more than 70%. Below that threshold, blood supply usually meets demand. You climb stairs, you feel fine. You go to sleep, you feel fine. The gap between what's growing inside you and what your body reports back is enormous. You are walking around with a structural crisis you cannot feel, and your body is actively hiding it from you. But the remodeling and the threshold only explain silence. They don't explain the moment things suddenly stop being silent, and that requires understanding the difference between two types of plaque that look nothing alike and behave nothing alike. Hard plaque is the calcified kind, dense, stable, fibrous. It's the kind that shows up on a CT scan as a bright white deposit. Ironically, hard plaque is the less dangerous kind. It's locked in place. It's not going anywhere. Soft plaque is different. Soft plaque, also called vulnerable or lipid-rich plaque, is exactly what it sounds like. It has a thin fibrous cap, a large lipid core, and it is biochemically unstable. Think of it as a blister that's been filled under pressure, and when that cap ruptures, everything inside that blister, the lipid debris, the inflammatory proteins, the dead cellular material, spills directly into the bloodstream. And here's the part that changes everything. The blood is not expecting that. The body interprets that rupture as a wound, an injury demanding immediate clotting. Platelets arrive and pile up around the rupture site. Fibrin threads weave across them like scaffolding. A clot forms, suddenly, rapidly, often completely, inside an artery that may have only been 40 or 50% blocked moments before. This is why someone with 50% blockage feels nothing on the couch but dies during a race. The race didn't reveal a pre-existing emergency. The physical exertion, with its spike in blood pressure and shear stress on the artery wall, triggered a rupture that the body then turned into an occlusion. The difference isn't fitness. It's supply and demand meeting a fragile wall at exactly the wrong moment. When that clot seals off a coronary artery, the muscle downstream, deprived of oxygen within seconds, begins to die. Not metaphorically, cells that have been beating reliably for 5 decades start to consume themselves in the absence of oxygen, a process called ischemia cascading into infarction. Cardiac muscle cells, unlike most tissues in the body, cannot regenerate. Every minute of blockage kills roughly 2 million of them. The electrical system of the heart, which depends on a precise chemical balance across every cell membrane, starts to misfire. Ventricular fibrillation, the heart quivering instead of pumping, can begin within minutes, and this entire cascade, the rupture, the clot, the blockage, the ischemia, the arrhythmia, is not random. It is a specific, predictable sequence, which means it is also in principle a sequence that can be interrupted. This is where the science becomes genuinely hopeful rather than just terrifying. Because the deception your body runs on you, the positive remodeling, the 70% threshold, the silent soft plaque, is only undetectable by the tools you've been told to rely on. A standard EKG misses it. A treadmill stress test misses it. Even most blood panels miss it because LDL cholesterol is only one piece of a much more complex inflammatory picture. But there are tools that don't miss it, and they've been available for years, largely undersold and underused. The coronary artery calcium score, CAC score, uses a low-radiation CT scan to measure calcified plaque in your coronary arteries. It takes about 10 minutes. A score of 0 means virtually no hard plaque and carries a very low near-term risk. A score above 300 means your arteries have been under assault for a long time and action is urgently warranted. But here's the nuance. A 0 CAC score doesn't rule out soft plaque. And soft plaque, the unstable rupture-prone kind, is exactly what a CT coronary angiogram can find. That test injects contrast dye and images the arteries directly, showing both hard and soft deposits, both the calcified and the vulnerable. It is, right now, the most honest conversation you can have with your own coronary anatomy. Combine that with a high-sensitivity CRP, a marker of vascular inflammation, and advanced lipid panels that measure particle size and number rather than just LDL concentration, and you suddenly have a completely different picture of your actual risk. Not your perceived risk, not the risk implied by how good you feel on a Wednesday morning, your real, measurable, biological risk. Because the tragedy of cardiac death in apparently healthy people is almost never truly sudden. It is the end of a long, silent process that nobody interrupted because nobody looked. The body that feels strong has been adapting. The heart, that performs beautifully under stress, may be compensating for an artery it has quietly been working around for a decade. Fitness masks symptoms. Symptoms mask mechanisms. And mechanisms, invisible, specific, physiologically precise, kill people who had no idea anything was wrong. The technology to see past that deception exists. The question is whether you decide that the absence of symptoms is enough, or whether you decide that understanding what's actually happening inside your arteries is worth 30 minutes and a conversation with a cardiologist who thinks about prevention rather than just treatment. One of those is a feeling, the other is data, and when it comes to the one organ you cannot live without for a single second, data is the only thing that keeps the silence from becoming permanent.